Sean, consciousness has been one of my focuses of life. My doctor's in neuroscience because I wanted to try to understand consciousness. Of course, one had very little to do with the other at that point, but I've continued to focus on it as perhaps the key to really understand reality. Now, you may disagree with that. I know you're a radical physicalist. So how do you deal with consciousness?
I think that consciousness is a way of talking about the physical world, just like many other ways of talking. It's one of these emergent phenomena that we find is a useful way of packaging reality. So we say that someone is conscious of something that corresponds to certain physical actions in the real world. I don't think that there is anything special about mental properties. I don't think there's any special mental realm of existence. I think it's all the physical world in all the manifold ways we have of describing it.
Okay, give me another example of an emergent phenomenon.
Well, the classic example of an emergent phenomenon is the fluid description of the air around us. The fact that even though it's made of discrete particles, atoms and molecules, we talk about it as a continuum with a pressure and a temperature and stuff like that. It's a macroscopic, coarse-grained view.
Great example. The wetness of water would be something similar. Okay. Now, I would believe that consciousness is qualitatively different from that because there is there is something that is like to have the feelings that I'm seeing. You call it an internal movie, whatever you want to call it. That the phenomenology of this is a radical difference from getting the wetness of water from individual molecules or the fluidity of air.
Right.
And you must disagree with that.
I do disagree with that. I think there's an irreducibility, but it's not in the reality, it's in how people talk to each other about it. There's something that...
But you see it, you live it, you
feel
it.
That's right. And I can describe it in physical terms perfectly well. When you say, like, I now have experienced the redness of red, I think that is a set of words that can be mapped on in a very direct way to certain physical things happening in my brain.
Oh, nobody doubts that.
There are people who doubt that, but yes, many people do not doubt that. And I think that's all there is.
At least among my friends, nobody doubts that.
You know, when you talk about the existence of a cat, you know, this is a category that is not to be found in the fundamental laws of physics. A cat, a game of basketball is not to be found. These are useful categories for describing the world. I think that consciousness, self-awareness, experience, intersubjectivity, very useful categories for describing the world.
Now, but you know, some physicists see consciousness as sitting below the wave function, not just part of the wave, but actually sitting below it as the most fundamental thing.
Some physicists deny global warming. I mean, I think that's some physicists is not a very good beginning to almost any sentence.
Okay, all right, I accept that. But with consciousness, one philosopher has said that consciousness is an output of the brain like urine is the output of the kidneys. Is that something you would subscribe to?
It's, no, I don't, I'm not sure I would use that exact metaphor. I mean, again, I think it's a very, very useful construct at a higher level of description, right? I can't imagine doing without consciousness as a way of talking about the world. I know what it means when people say, I'm conscious of this. I know what it's like to be that. These are real ways of describing the underlying
When you're saying I'm
reality.
conscious of it, that's sort of an English locution that means I'm aware of something, but you could almost be conscious or aware of something in a mechanical or zombie-like way in terms of behavioral reaction. But I'm talking about the phenomena that we all feel seems so radically different from anything that you see in the brain. I mean, I dealt with that. You deal with the probing of electrodes and electrochemistry and the genetic expressions. Do you believe that the phenomenology of what we see is, in an identical theory sense, two descriptions like the morning star and the evening star is the same?
Yes, that's right.
Is Venus is the same thing. I just call it by different reasons because I didn't know that they were the same.
Absolutely. And I think that actually, to me, zombies, the idea of the philosophical zombie, something that acts in exactly the same way as a conscious creature, but just lacks the consciousness, lacks that inner subjective experience, is a great argument for my position in the sense that it's very hard to really take self-consistently this idea of a philosophical zombie, because if you met a zombie, you ask them, what are you experiencing right now? They would tell you exactly the same thing
right.
that a regular person would say.
Right.
And you say, well, at least I know I'm not a zombie. Do you really know that? Of course, you're telling yourself you're not a zombie, you're experiencing, but so would a zombie. A zombie would say they're not a zombie. I think that there's really no way of boiling that thought experiment down to a consistent holding of the idea there could be something that physically acts exactly like me, yet lacks this important element of
The zombie
consciousness.
would say that I'm not a zombie and describe the inner feelings, but would still be a zombie.
That is the proposal, and I'm just pointing out how silly it begins to sound, because they would be sincere.
Look, I think
they
anything
would really think they're experiencing it.
They would really say
Why would
that
they lie?
it's a sort of a behavioral reaction. It's sort of an input-output.
That's right. And the difference between me and someone who thinks that there is something phenomenologically different about consciousness is that is all there is.